So again, my name is Susan B. Aurora. I am a channel, I'm a spiritualist, and I join my live partners on Sunday mornings to give you guys a message and some inspirational speaking. I've been doing this live on TikTok for several months now, it feels like, and I use this platform to practice. To be honest, I use this platform to practice my speaking abilities, my abilities to channel, and to provide that information to you guys. Today's message was, I explained last week how I get information from spirit in order to channel it to you guys. And this morning was a really hard message, and I think the energy in the collective is really heavy right now. So I feel like I am channeling a bit of information that is hard to receive, hard to hear sometimes. It could be controversial a little bit. So stick with me. This message is a message to many of my empaths who are feeling this heavy energy in the collective right now. I'm always asking spirit, and I've been asking spirit for several weeks now, and you can see this in my inspirational messages and my sermons from last week, that I've been asking for an answer, because I feel like I'm getting inundated with a lot of dark energy, and I'm looking for the way out. I'm looking for the way out, and I'm looking for an answer that I can give you guys that would feel like you're not helpless, because a lot of the energy, and I feel it as well, I feel a lot of energy that feels helpless and frustrated. Frustrated. And so there's a big part of the collective who carry the claircognizance spiritual gifts. Okay, there's many of us who carry this claircognizance energy. If you don't know what that means, if you don't know what it is a knowing. Okay, many of you carry a knowing that is very big, it's very grand, and it's very you don't know how or why you have this spiritual gift, and you don't know how or why you know things, but you know things, right? You can see greater perspective. You can see answers to difficult problems, and you can understand how to get from point A to point B. But the frustration is always going to be there, because there always requires an action in order to implement very intelligent information, right? There is always going to have to be an action that takes place. And a lot of the collective that we're dealing with are energies, human beings, souls, spirits that do not actually want to implement change and take that action. So that is where the frustration lies. A lot of people who carry the claircognizance energy with them, the knowing, they really have no more interest in the details, the specific details, okay? The nitty gritty that we get fed from the media, the minute details of the trauma, and the, let's say, the meat and potatoes. I don't know how else to describe it, but there are surface level energies that we really don't have the capacity anymore to tolerate, because at a level of awakening, okay, many of us experience this who go beyond the initial surface levels of awakening. You can read this in people who are on the spiritual journey, but really haven't gotten into the depths of energy work, okay? Because even within the spiritual community, there is a surface level education that many of us receive. And even if you aren't awakened, you receive this surface level energy. You receive this manipulation, this brainwashing that happens, that is very easy to implement. Okay, there's so much information in my head right now, and I really want to get this out to you as clear as possible so that you can understand to some degree that everything that is happening right now in our world is being driven by collective energy. So there's a lot of that hopeless feeling that we don't have this power when we are in fact the most powerful group. I hear, and this is what I mean about the nitty. This is what I hear: the one percenters and everyone with the money, and this is being controlled by the government. All of this. This is the nitty gritty that I'm talking about. This is the stuff that is full of the frustration for many of the people who know, who have a knowing, who know that we really are the bigger group who maintains most of the control. Because as a collective energy, we are super powerful. But we aren't necessarily willing to step into that action state of being. We're not necessarily willing to do what it takes to enact a change. Right? A lot of change, what does that look like? I mean, it's a simple economic equation. It's so simple, but yet so difficult to achieve because there is a supply and demand. And it is the same way with energy. There is a supply and demand. And what we as a collective do is we demand certain things and then it is supplied for us. So for example, simple things like blaming the government because we aren't getting the nutrition that we deserve or need or want. But yet many of us aren't willing to plant gardens in our backyard. So this is a very simple equation that goes over a lot of people's head, is that you do still have control. You do still have that power to feed yourself. You're always going to have that power. You're always going to have that ability to provide nutritional means for your family, but are you willing to do what it takes? Are you willing to quit the jobs that are feeding corporate America? Are you willing to quit that corporate job that supports your family? Right? That's another big energy that is held within collective energy, because we all gain things from our 401ks. Are you willing to stop investing in your 401k? These are just little tiny bits of that little bit of control that we ourselves have that we aren't necessarily willing to give up. We're not necessarily willing to give up going to the supermarket and having conveniences given to us, right? But yet we want to complain about it. We want to put all that negativity out into the energy fields of everybody, that collective energy, without actually recognizing that we do have a lot of control that we don't use. There is a supply and demand aspect to everything. Drugs, okay? Medications, drugs. We are in demand and it is going to be supplied to us as long as we are asking for it, okay? And that energy is difficult to change. It is difficult to transform. And we think that picking the right president, per se, is going to change. Everything we do shifts the power to something else. Everything we do shifts the power to something else. When in reality, we do maintain most of the power. We do maintain most of the energy that is being fed into the collective. As a collective, as the greater majority of human beings on this planet. So this message came in very clear to me today because I get really frustrated with listening to, like I said, I don't listen to the news anymore, but I work with people and I hear all of I can see as a claircognizant energy, I can see where people are not taking accountability or responsibility for their energy, okay, and their contribution to that collective energy. Right? There was a second part to this message that was even bigger. That really puts me in a place of still not quite understanding the agenda. Okay. And as a person in my human design, I look for the pathways that are of the least resistance, okay? I'm looking for the way out that is the most beneficial on the greater scale for everybody. I'm looking for guidance to understand what is the biggest agenda that we should be focused on. And what is it that spirit really, what is their intentions? Because as a whole, as a group, not only are we being controlled by the government, right, per se, for example, in our belief systems, we believe this, but the government is also being controlled by higher beings. So there is a process, and it doesn't end with the government, and it doesn't end with the 1%ers. It just doesn't. This is a clear message. Everything is being controlled for a reason. And a lot of that control, again, is energy. It's all energy. It is all being fed by collective need. So when you turn to spirit and you're asking for answers to questions, it's always going to be mirrored back to you, because that's how energy is. It's always going to be more of, okay, what can I do? What can I do that's going to take away from this collective energy that is perceived as negative? And I'll give you an example. This is a really hard. This was hard for me to look at this morning, but I'll give you an example when it comes to abortion, okay? The government does not have moral, we know this, the governments aren't moral when it comes to making decisions, okay? It's not based on morality, not the majority of their decisions. The majority of their decisions is based on economics, right? So when it comes to abortion, there is a lack of morality, even though they may perceive that to you as that is the moral ground that they are feeding, brainwashing you with, I would say. I don't know what other word. I hate the word brainwash, but that is their surface level explanation of things. And if you are part of the Claircognizance spiritual gift community, you understand that first layer in anything, that first explanation that anyone gives you is a surface level explanation, and that you have to go in to something through levels and layers. And so there's always going to be layers. That first layer is not it, okay? That is not the understanding. And you should always ask yourself, what is the deeper understanding here? Because it's not ever going to be that first explanation, ever. With anybody or anything that you communicate with, that you find that you're questioning their agenda, their intentions, their purpose, you have to know that there is depth to that energy. Okay, if you stop at the surface level, you are not in an awakened state. Okay. So when you look at abortion, you can stop at that religious level, but that is not an awakened state. Okay, that is not the depth of that purpose. Okay, because there are higher beings that have another agenda. There are bigger agendas other than the government's agenda. And so that's what I want you to realize. When you carry that claircognizance energy, you have to, you already know there's a bigger knowing. You already know that the agendas are much greater, and that the answers are much greater, and there's deeper intentions, and there's a lot more going into it than just the governments and the rich people. There's so much more to it. And so there is an unraveling happening in front of our eyes. We see that there's patterns that are being dismantled, right? We can see this. We can see this when it comes to our sexual abuse. We can see this when it comes to all the manipulation, when it comes to people who hold power and who abuse the power. So you can see this naturally unfolding, and if you're not awakened to that, those patterns being broken, then again, that is another state of being that you're not achieving, right? So you can see that all of this is happening, and you know, again, where is it going? Where is it going to lead? Where does it take us? Because as a collective, things are changing and things are happening, but where is our responsibility? Where are we going to be holding ourselves accountable for greater change? For greater change. Where is that going to take place? Because we do have and hold a lot of power. A lot of power. Simply in the supply and demand. Simply in the economics. It's very simple. And I'm not the first person to say this. I'm not the first person to go on TikTok and express that we hold power in our purchases. We hold power in the things that we buy at the grocery store. We hold power in everything that we do, and the things that we feed our body, and the companies that we work for, in the cars that we buy, right? We hold power in sending our children to college and making those decisions and going into debt and using the bank system. We have all of the power, but one of the first things we're going to do is say, well, maybe if we elect the appropriate president, everything will change and things will be different. Everything is not going to change, and things aren't going to be different on that level. It's not going to happen because the agenda and the intentions are economic based. We as a collective, as a spiritual community, we are moving away from that, right? Those who are in the New Earth philosophy, we recognize there is a knowing that things are moving away from that, right? You can see that happening slowly, but surely things are moving away from that process. And it could go slow only because there's so many of us who are unwilling to make those changes within our own lives. That's all it takes. It's really not that difficult, but it is, because you have to make those choices for yourself and for your family. Where are you going to break the pattern? Where are you going to withhold your energy? When are you going to start taking accountability? When are you going to start doing things differently? And a lot of this is reverting back, and I had this in my last Sunday's sermon. A lot of this does revert back to old ways of taking care of your bodies and feeding yourselves, and really going back into a place where a simpler, a more humble way of living, where greed and money is not the base of our foundations. Actual joy is the base. Actually enjoying your life and not living in that grind, and not being so caught up in the big houses and the big cars and having all of the material gain that your children aren't being raised, and that you're not living every day as in a place of joy, where you're living stressed, completely stressed and overworked and underloved and understood and full of anger at the greater processes that have been put in place over time. So this was the message today, and I have to take a real strong look at my own life and my own contribution to those collective energies. A lot of you don't understand how even the sexual manipulation of and exploitation of women and children, how that can simply evolve just from desire, not being able to have the strength to see temptation for what it is and to deny it and to deny it. Not being able to protect women and children, not being able to be in that place, especially for men, of protecting the divine feminine. So everything that we see in the universe, in our world that is happening, it is a mirror to our own personal universes that we need to understand that we do have control over. So this idea where we become so frustrated and there's a lack of hope, all you need to do is to pull back and see where your energy is going, where your money is going, and do you want to support certain things? Do you want to support that corporate America? If that's your vice, if that's your point of frustration, you really have to look at what's your point of frustration, what frustrates you in the world that you live in, and look at it and see where you can make and enact change within your personal life. Because if everybody did this, the energy has to be mirrored back to us. It is the law. It is the law. Everything that we do energetically gets mirrored back to us in some way, shape, or form.